YouTube Bear Gunner channel. I wanted to do another video really taking a closer look at these Seneca hunting pellets in 177. I'm going to show a series of photos that breaks down some of the overall dimensions of the pellet themselves. Take a closer look at the back end of the pellet and really try to understand how some of these dimensions translate into this being a pretty good performing, very heavy pellet out of the Flashpup in 177. Now, the first thing, and I believe I pointed this out in the review video I did on these pellets, is on Pyramid Air's website. When you go to look at these pellets and or purchase these pellets, it specifically mentions in very bold lettering that these pellets are only to be used in powerful pre-charged pneumatic air rifles. They specifically use the word powerful. Discourage the use in any type of air gun that isn't a pre-charged pneumatic. Underneath in the more lengthy description of the pellet, but in the shorter breakdown bullet points in bold lettering, it says to only use them in powerful pre-charged pneumatics, and it gives some examples of some of the manufacturers that it would recommend as a powerful pre-charged pneumatic. Hatsan is not one of them, but it does go on to say to be used in air guns similar in power to the ones that they do mention, which, as I said, with this being tuned the way that I have it tuned, it is what I would certainly call a powerful pre-charged pneumatic. Looking at the overall length of the pellet, it's 322 thousandths of an inch long. The good news that I have that I did not include in the review of the pellet, I had only used the single shot tray up until the point of making that particular video and shooting them and testing for accuracy. They do fit into the magazines for the Flashpup. They just barely, they take up all of the available space that is there to load up a pellet, but it does load, it does cycle, they're usable in the magazines. So, thought that was pretty important to mention. I have shot them through the magazine. Up until this point, haven't really experienced issues with the magazine cycling using these pellets, and still achieve very good accuracy from the pellets themselves being shot out of the magazine. Now, after taking a look at the overall length of the pellet, I wanted to take a look at the back end of the pellet. And it becomes quite obvious how they achieve the weight that they do for this particular pellet. Let's take a look at it. So as you can see, there's very little hollow area to this particular pellet. It is there. It is from the very most middle portion of the skirt. It fills out with a quite thick area of lead as it gets to the outer portion of the skirt. So this is pretty much a lot of lead in a more traditional Diabolo-shaped pellet with what definitely has a different head apart from the skirt. The skirt itself is very thick. That's why I believe they hold up their accuracy even under the use from one of the Flashpup's magazines. The indexing action of the magazine, while prone, in my opinion, to distorting and bending skirts on pellets with much thinner skirts, this one is extremely thick, as you can tell from that picture. They just use up a lot of that hollow skirt area that you would find on other pellets with lead. So I believe these are much less prone to being bent and damaged in the cycling process of the magazine. Now, the next picture I wanted to put up, because I think it's visually apparent in this picture, is the picture of the pellet that's on the front of the tin. If you really look closely at that pellet that's standing up, you can visually see how much wider the skirt is than the head of the pellet. And to confirm that, I used my calipers to check the overall diameter of the head of the pellet, and use my calipers to check the overall diameter of the skirt of the pellet. So as you can see, there's a pretty big difference. Number one, they're fairly large at both ends. As I was getting from my calipers, approximately 180 thousandths in diameter at the head. 188 thousandths on the skirt. That's a pretty big difference between the head and the skirt. And to get 188 diameter for the skirt for a pellet that's marketed as 177 caliber, that's a big increase over 177, 188. Based on the amount of lead fragments found in the tin, as I showed in my other video, which is a lot of lead fragments, both stuck to the lid, and as you remove the pellets to clean them, what you're going to find in the base part of the tin is a lot more lead fragments. These must be a very soft lead. I don't have any problem loading these into the loading port of my gun. They don't hang up at all. There isn't a noticeable increase in the amount of pressure needed to push the bolt forward and load these particular pellets, which leads me to believe they're an extremely soft lead. Given the fact that you're pushing a 188 diameter skirt into a barrel that probably isn't exactly, but extremely close to 177 in diameter, with no noticeable increase in effort needed, they must be really soft. There must be a tremendous amount, in my opinion, of engagement between the skirt of the pellet and the rifling of the barrel. And that, coupled with the large amount of air being used to force this projectile out of this gun, I'm assuming is resulting in the accuracy that I'm seeing, which is really good, and the hitting power that I'm seeing. As was shown in the previous video, there's over 32 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle to be had from these pellets coming out of this gun. So it seems to me that the combination of the shape, the weight, and the size, and the power of, coupled with the power of the gun, really makes for an accurate, hard-hitting pellet. I'm extremely happy to have come across something that will utilize the power that's capable from this particular gun, tuning it for the power that's capable of this gun, and finding something that offers a combination of ease of shooting, not a lot of restrictions involved, not a lot of forcing of ammunition into the barrel port, coupled with the accuracy. Just really happy to see that. But I do want to emphasize, as was said, this isn't a pellet you want to try out of just any .177 caliber air gun. So as far as a little bit of analyzing these particular pellets, here on my weight, which is an extremely budget-friendly scale, it doesn't read to tenths of a grain, so it's going to round off to a whole grain number. And in this case, it is checking 16 grains, which is what it will check on this particular scale, being 16.1. So we know that it's fairly accurate weight designation. I'm going to try on a full fill, single shot into a catalog, and we'll get some velocity number, a power number based on that velocity and the weight of the pellet, and then I'm going to try to dig it out and take a look at some of the deformation that is offered by these Seneca hunting pellets. So as you can see, there was a great deal of penetration and a great deal of deformation with this pellet. Other than the very most back end of the pellet, the entire rest of the area of that pellet mushroomed and deformed and fragmented, everything you'd want from a hunting pellet. I'm extremely impressed with the penetration. I tried to focus in on the amount of pages that it was able to leave some type of ripping effect to. There are a couple of sections I quartered off that particular catalog. I'm running out of catalogs that I haven't already shot, but as far as those quarters, one's labeled with a pellet name. The two top ones are labeled with the pellet names. Two bottom ones have been shot but aren't labeled. But as far as comparatively speaking, whatever those 4 different types of pellets were used in that particular catalog, none of them penetrated anywhere near as much as the Seneca hunting pellet. So it seems to be an extremely good balance between penetration and deformation. And as you can see from the power numbers, achieving over 32.5 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle from a 177 caliber pellet is pretty impressive. Again, depending on how these shoot at longer distances, this may be a pellet I decide to re-sight in the gun specifically for. I still have it dialed in for the Hades. If I can get anywhere near the accuracy from the Seneca pellets that I have gotten from the Hades, I may re-sight this gun in specifically for the Senecas and really make that my choice for squirrel hunting for when I do use this particular gun for that reason. So far, they have impressed the crap out of me. With the exception of the lead fragmentation that comes in the tin. You know, this would be, if it was a 5-star review, I would give it 4.5 stars. With the explanation, I would have given it a complete 5 stars if the pellets had been sorted and cleaned prior to packaging. That would be the ultimate situation as far as I'm concerned. But in summation, these things just look incredible up to this particular point. Accuracy-wise, penetration-wise, deformation-wise, maximum hitting power, it just seems to have everything. Longer range accuracy is what still is on the table that needs to be tested and looked at. So, guys, thanks for checking out this video. Really appreciate you stopping by. Until the next one, stay safe and shoot straight.